Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. After more than 100 days of national security chaos and, of course, the Signal scandal, Michael Waltz is out as Donald Trump's national security advisor. That's the headline, although it hardly does justice to how this all unfolded today. It started this morning with reports that Waltz and his deputy, seen there Alex Wong, were soon to be removed from their jobs, fired, basically. People familiar with the situation told the New York Times that this was, in fact, an ouster by Trump. But then this afternoon, Trump spun the ouster into something else.
Well, I think you got to put this under the heading of vintage Trump, because a few hours ago we heard that Mike Waltz, the national security advisor, was being shown the door. But as he went out one door, he went in another one, and that was the nomination to be the UN ambassador. Here's what Donald Trump said in a Truth Social posting. He said, "I'm pleased to announce that I will be nominating Mike Waltz to be the next United States ambassador to the United Nations. In the interim, Secretary of State Marco Rubio will serve as national security advisor while continuing his strong leadership at the State Department."
Wait, what? This was an abrupt and incredible shakeup that would leave Marco Rubio, get this, simultaneously holding at least 4 official full-time jobs in the government. Secretary of State, acting national security advisor, acting administrator of USAID, which of course they're trying to destroy, and just to throw it on the pile, acting head of the National Archives. And all of it came as news to Rubio's own spokeswoman at the State Department.
The president has just written on Truth Social that Mike Waltz is going to become the new U.S. ambassador to the United Nations.
Well, there you go. Fabulous.
And in addition to that, he says that in the interim, Secretary of State Marco Rubio will serve as national security advisor while continuing his strong leadership at the State Department. Do you know how long he's going to be serving in both roles?
It is clear that I just heard this from you. I think the one thing I've learned is that things don't happen until the president says they're going to happen. So the fact that is, which was obviously Truth Social. Yeah, so that is the miracle of modern technology and the social media.
I mean, fabulous. The miracle of modern technology. It is, I guess, classic Trump. Almost seems as if this was not a well-planned move, but rather, hear me out on this, a face-saving measure by a president who wanted to fire his national security advisor but didn't want to be blamed for hiring the guy in the first place. And make no mistake about it, right? This is a demotion for Mike Waltz. He's out of the core of the security establishment. He's nominated to a still open position that is kind of second tier in a Republican administration. In fairness to Waltz, you got to say this, and tip of the cap, he did last longer than Trump's first national security advisor back in 2017. Remember that guy? Michael Flynn is the name. He pled guilty, lying to the FBI about his contacts with Russia. He later got a Trump pardon. Now, Flynn made it just 22 days, and his departure foreshadowed an administration that, you might recall, was constantly churning through personnel. So now here we are. We have our first high-profile firing by Trump in this term. And there is an open question of why. It is true that Waltz was the one who took full responsibility for, whoopsie, accidentally adding a journalist to that Signal chat where he and other officials were discussing classified military operations in Yemen, even though that scandal really centered on Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. And since then, there's been an avalanche of stories on Hegseth's reckless incompetence, his use of Signal, for instance, to send those same war plans to another text chain that included his wife, brother, and others, war plans that came from a classified source. Despite Trump alternating between clearly not understanding what the Signal app is and also denigrating it, it's also clear that his inner circle is still using it right in front of him. Here's an image of Waltz just yesterday, captured by a Reuters photographer. You can see he is literally using Signal in a cabinet meeting that was being televised. Clearly visible in that photograph are chats with Rubio, with Tulsi Gabbard, and with Vice President J.D. Vance. You can actually read a part of Vance's last message saying, "I have confirmation from my counterpart. It's turned off." Ooh, interesting. Who's your counterpart? What's turned off? We don't know. Is it classified? Sure hope not. All we know is Mike Waltz is out of there at NSA, exiled to the UN, but although he's still got to get confirmed, we'll see. Now, it also appears that part of the story happening here is a kind of ideological purge led by, drumroll please, this woman, seen here chaining herself to one of the doors of Twitter's headquarters in 2018 because the platform had banned her for her consistently hateful posting. It's the same woman who accompanied Trump to a 9/11 memorial last year, even though she's a 9/11 truther. She's been spotted several times in the past year, advising the former and now current president very closely. I mean, really, really close to him. She's a far-right influencer named Laura Loomer, who is famous for making sweeping statements like this.
I truly believe that the people who engaged in the coup against Donald Trump and have caused, civil unrest and chaos in our country for the last 7 years through Crossfire Hurricane and also through these what I believe are illegal witch hunts against the president of the United States right now, unconstitutional witch hunts against Donald Trump. They are treasonous. They are traitors. They should get the death penalty when they are jailed in the next Trump administration.
Just to be clear, Crossfire Hurricane, meaning the folks in the FBI, the Justice Department, jailed, executed under Trump. That's what she called for. Now, early last month, on the very same day that Donald Trump announced his tariffs, according to the New York Times, he also had a truly weird meeting with one and the same, Laura Loomer, in the Oval Office. And in that meeting, you got Laura Loomer, President of the United States, and the guy running the national security apparatus for the most powerful nation on earth. They're all in the Oval Office, and in that meeting, Loomer, the one you saw chained to the Twitter door, was blasting Waltz and his staff as insufficiently loyal to MAGA. Shortly afterward, Trump fired 6 officials on the National Security Council. Those were officials Waltz had defended in that same Oval Office meeting, apparently to no avail. The next day in Air Force One, Trump was asked about that meeting with, again, his national security advisor and the woman who chained herself to the door of Twitter, and how it went.
Laura Loomer is a very good patriot. She is a very strong person. And I saw her yesterday for a little while. She makes recommendations of things and people. And sometimes I listen to those recommendations.
They do seem to spend a lot of time together, that she can make recommendations sometimes. Sometimes he listens to those recommendations. Today, we got the news that, Waltz was out at NSC. I don't know from outside if these things are related, but here's what I do know. Loomer had beef with Waltz and his deputy.
Alex Wong, he's Chinese, by the way, so I don't really know who's doing the vetting. If I was involved in vetting, things like this would not be happening. Okay, so again, I don't know why we have Chinese individuals in positions of national security in the Trump administration. Maybe that's a question for Michael Waltz.
I'm quite sure Alex Wong is an American citizen. Loomer seems to think that he's ethnically unacceptable in the position he had. Whatever the reasons for Waltz being marginalized, which is possibly that he had a, quote, in Loomer's mind, Chinese deputy, Trump is kind of rearranging the deck chairs on a badly listing ship and trying to do it in a way that doesn't look bad for him. And part of that, we should note, involves him consolidating 2 of the most important roles in the federal government, Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, giving them both to Marco Rubio, child of Cuban immigrants who once made his bones in the Senate, standing up very proudly, very rhetorically, forcefully against dictators for the rule of law. A guy who is now the face of Trump's unconstitutional rendition regime.
Have you been in touch with El Salvador about returning Abrego Garcia? Has a formal request from this administration been made?
Well, I would never tell you that. And you know who else I'll never tell? A judge. Because the conduct of our foreign policy belongs to the President of the United States and the executive branch, not some judge.
So in order to cover the incompetency of his administration, Donald Trump is consolidating power even further, giving 2 powerful positions to a lone, single, sycophantic subordinate. Garrett Haake is the senior White House correspondent for NBC News, and he joins me now. Garrett, what light can you shed on this shakeup today?
Well, look, I think you characterize it correctly as a demotion. It's especially true in this administration. The president has lambasted the UN throughout his political and his public career. And in this White House, more than any other, proximity to Donald Trump and to the White House is power. Mike Waltz was just down the hallway from the Oval Office. He was in every major meeting. Now he's going to be exiled to New York. I also think the fact that we know nothing about the fate of his deputy, who you just mentioned, Alex Wong, kind of gives this away, too. They were pushed up, if not exactly pushed out, but they won't be here any longer. this does go back to Signalgate. I think the big question that I still have tonight is why exactly today. Our reporting has been that Trump's been a little bit frustrated over the kind of ongoing Signal story. Remember, he met with the same reporters from The Atlantic a week ago. Did something come up in that meeting? I don't know. But there's been kind of 1,000 cuts against Mike Waltz. I actually thought that when he survived that first Laura Loomer-related purge, he was probably going to be okay. And in fact, talked to a White House official yesterday who was telling me how things had finally calmed down in the National Security Advisor's office. Doesn't seem to be the case. And now Marco Rubio, who's already at the White House a ton for a sitting Secretary of State, I think is going to be here essentially every day.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's got 4 jobs, and they're not like, it's not like, well, you got a paper route in the morning and you're mowing lawns in the afternoon.
Well, the other part of this, though, Chris, is that he has had some elements of the Secretary of State job stripped away from him and given to other advisors. Trump has created all these envoy positions. Steve Witkoff's one of them, Rick Grenell's one of them, where he's taken big diplomatic portions of the Secretary of State's role and given them to other senior officials. Marco Rubio may have the time in his schedule to do this since he's not the guy, striking the deals with Vladimir Putin or not.
That's a decent point, Garrett Haake. Good to talk to you. Thank you.
You bet.